All right. Thank you all for being here. I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the core organizers for DevOps Days KC. I'm also kind of the lead Meetup kind of runner, muckety-muck, or person that gets drew the short end of the stick to do it. But I love it. I love being here. I'm glad you all are here as well. This is our. We've been now doing this. This will be our 15th time in a row, which is great since we came back. So glad to be here. How many? And I usually do this. How many of you? This is your first time to DevOps KC, one of our meetups. Okay, so there's a good 4. Okay, and then so that means the rest of you return, which is actually great because we tend to have about 60% new, and then about 30% is kind of return. So we kind of flipped that this month. This is great. So hopefully I continue to everybody get here that have been here before. But yeah, thanks for coming. Typically I'm just gonna say thank you to our sponsors. Whoop, let's go back. Thank you to our sponsors. This week we have Tech Systems is always always hosting for us, so they're a great sponsor. Actually, gonna have you come over and just kind of introduce yourself, kind of tell a little bit about what Tech Systems is, and then just hold that.
Perfect.
And then go from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Definitely recognize a few of you. So Tech Systems, for those of you guys who haven't heard, we are one of the leading IT services in staffing organizations. And I know sometimes that just sounds like a lot of buzzwords. Basically, what we do is we help match our customers with IT talent. As you all know, it seems like there's a new tool right around the corner every couple months. What ends up happening is customers get sold a bill of goods, right? Microsoft comes out with a new toy, Amazon comes out with a new toy, and all of a sudden they've got this environment where they've got 6 things interacting with each other, and they're like, oh man, now I have to find one person that can do X, Y, and Z skill sets. And I know that person probably doesn't sit in Kansas City. So what they do is they come to us. We have offices, we have over 100 offices across the US. So we kind of help them find that top talent. So we also do a lot more than just that. We do a lot of digital transformation, cloud migration. We do a lot of advisory. We do anything in IT. We really help our customers. And so I'm one of our lead recruiters. I specialize in the data analytics space. And kind of one of the things I really like about our company compared to others is we specialize. So you guys have probably talked to recruiters before. A lot of firms, they don't just recruit IT. They recruit accountants, they recruit lawyers, they recruit janitors and mailroom clerks, right? So to you all are the exact same. You're just all IT. We know you're not. So we all try to specialize our recruiters. So if you're let's say you're a back-end developer, or you're front-end, or you're DevOps, or you're cloud, we try to line you with a recruiter who knows exactly what you're talking about, who knows what customers are doing what all across the country, helping you just progress your career. So whether you want to stay up to date with the latest technology, maybe you want a pay raise, work from home, better benefits, whatever it is, we're here to help. So feel free. We'll have our cards for you. Feel free to come grab them. Take a look.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. Cool. Yeah, I've said this before, but I can personally attest that my first actual corporate job in Naira a while back was through Tech Systems, and that they were great back then, and they continue to be great now. So definitely, if you're looking for something, reach out to them. They got a group back there, kind of ready to answer any questions you have. And we're gonna be here till 7:30. We got to be out of here at 7:30, but we'll go through some stuff and then some time to hopefully at the end kind of have some networking and continue to polish off that pizza and some of the drinks and have a good chat with Tech Systems. So cool. All right, and then other sponsors, Simple Salt, which and Dylan's going to be speaking to us, but they cover pizza and drinks tonight. So thanks to them. So yeah, give them a good round of applause. Cool. And he'll tell you a little bit more about what they do. I don't have that spiel, if you leave that to them. Cool. All right. So who here, I already asked who has their tickets to DevOps Days KC. all of the rest of you that don't, scan that, get you right to the page, and we did extend the early bird price until probably until for another couple weeks. We're going to be getting the program out so you'll be able to see the speakers. That way you have a good opportunity to see who's coming before you go and purchase a ticket. Get you a discounted ticket. So definitely go out to that. It's tickets.devopsdaysdc.org as well if the QR code, for some reason doesn't work. And then we can also do bulk tickets, which if your company's looking at a good conference to get you in front of a lot of good speakers and good conversation around DevOps and a good way to learn. There's going to be some great talks. I know 95% are, and it's going to be great content. We can do some options around if you want to purchase, they want to purchase more than 10 tickets. That could get them to actually be labeled a corporate sponsor. So, talk to your company, reach out, let us know, how we can help get you all some tickets, and we can work that out. So that's that. And sponsorship is still available. Cool. The next thing is Dylan. Dylan's going to come speak to us and on securing your cloud, 3 objectives you must get right. So with that, Dylan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
See if the plug still works. No.
There we go.
All right, I got a couple questions before I get really going. Mostly about who all y'all are. Are there any CIO types here today? Anybody that defines culture for their organization? Okay. Anybody who makes great big tech spend?
Few of us.
Few of us. Okay. So those are the usual audiences for this talk. So I'm guessing most of you are more in the weeds. You're building, you're doing, right? Does that seem about right? Go ahead.
The reason I came is for the first point you made. I serve at the board level of a lot of small tech companies.
We should talk.
Well,
Yeah.
I just got my certificate.
All right. So this is strategic. This talk is strategic. It is not going to get into all the config of Cloudflare, the relative opportunities of CloudFront versus CloudWatch, how you should do Terraform, how you should do CloudFormation, any of that. And I think this is mostly going to be useful to you folks when you get your CIO talking to you and saying, why not? There are there are 2 sections for questions, partially through the talk, so I'll pause there and y'all can let it rip. It's going to be fairly conversational. Okay, I'm Dylan, Simple Salt. I changed my tagline. Sorry. My credentials and CV aren't listed here. They're long and stuff, but you can look them up if you want. Let's see. This is going to have a lot of generalities. So if you have, if you notice something technically inaccurate, yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm going to gloss over a lot. I would appreciate if you want, do the survey. I do science on perspectives of people that and what they're looking for. There'll be more at the end as well. Okay. If you would like to spend the rest of the time browsing Instagram, here you go. This is the end of the talk. So when you're building in the cloud, don't do it the data center way. Lift and shift is no faster, no more resilient. It's a lot more expensive, and it's much less secure. No lift and shifts. Okay, let's start. Why security? Why be secure at all? A lot of people start from an assumption of it's the right thing to do, right? This is how you do it. This is the approved way. You change your default passwords. You, set access control in Identity Manager and AWS the right way, and you use Control Tower and all these things. You do it the right way. But a lot of people don't think hard about their why. And I found this is one of the most useful ways of explaining to people outside the tech space why they should care about what you should care, or what you care about. And there's some surprising advantages and creative solutions that you can come up with if you start with that why. For instance, Simple Salt stops internet crime. Most people say, oh yeah, security, I've got Norton antivirus, right? You've heard this before. That, Norton has not worked for a decade. And the reason why people keep buying it is because for most companies, being defensible is more important than avoiding getting nailed. So you want to avoid getting fired. You want to defend the lawsuit. I did what a reasonable person would do. That's the strategy. But because legal precedent takes 10 years to establish, what works for defensibility is always about 10 years old, at best. And the modern effective tools, the eliminating single points of failure, will not help you be defensible. So the set of activities that provide defensibility and the set of activities that stop crime do not have a lot of overlap. Compliance is real, trust is real, it's important, but it's not the same thing as stopping crime. So if you want to stop crime, that's what we do. All right. Let's start with how IT works in data centers. These are some generalizations. Some IT teams deliver an almost cloud experience with Kubernetes and all sorts of fancy stuff. And a lot of organizations use their cloud as they would a data center. All right. So here's all the stuff in a data center. You can see at the bottom, you have the physical layer. You got giant old UPSs and diesel generators. You got physical security key cards, all that stuff. And as you go up, you start looking at rack mounts and servers and SANs and interconnects and weird HP fiber channel stuff. And then usually it sits on hypervisors of some sort. Maybe you have virtual appliances sitting on that, or maybe VMs or LPARs. Anybody know what an LPAR is? 1, 2. You get a prize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you know what that is. And then you have some services, some health services, monitoring, health indicators of compromise, patching, all that stuff. Now, this may feel like a lot, but the reason I mention it is because all of these things are separate skills. You cannot get a CC, what is it? Folks, what's the Cisco cert that's hot? CCNA? Yeah. You cannot get a CCNA to do SCCM. Totally separate, right? All of these I mentioned because there's something that employers are going to look for as a skill, and people are going to think, yeah, I got to have that on my resume. Being able to do Kubernetes is different than being able to do vSphere, like wildly different. let's talk about the organization. So you're a CIO. Everybody put on your CIO hats. You're thinking about these big blocks of people. You've got your customers, mostly they're internal customers, right? You've got all these departments, segments that are out making money. They all see IT as this bunch of techno jibber jabber and mostly apps. Mostly they see apps. And you have app teams and dev teams, and they work with an ITSM and they do tickets and stuff to all talk to each other in different teams on different VMs, and sometimes things are on the server or the database farm, and different teams have different realms of responsibility. You got governance voices over the top telling everybody how to do their jobs. In a data center, your security strategy is reflective of this reality. Your vulnerability, you do a lot of vulnerability management because you've got a lot of operating systems to worry about and a lot of machines to worry about. Your environments are all inconsistent because truth is in the devices. And so you're always playing catch up. Controlling things is expensive because you have to spend time and energy finding out what's true, because what's true is on the devices, so you're going to spend a lot to find out what's true. But what's good is you've got people with good judgment sitting in front of every dangerous thing. It's also slow. You might think slow is bad. Slow is also bad for an attacker, right? Also, all the myriad junk that we saw before, just where you have to staff up all of this stack, it's very difficult to do recon in a data center because, the attacker needs to know about all this different kind of technology and different models and different threats. Your main strategy is know what you've got, what's out there, know what it's vulnerable to, segment the crap out of everything as best you can, and lock down administrative access. There's more past this, but these are like the top four. This is going to get you 80% of the way there. Okay. You have a huge amount of attack surface to protect, and people usually focus mostly on infrastructure. Okay, let's summarize. In a data center, things are slow. You gotta wait for the ticket to come back. You gotta wait for the VM to spin up. Everything takes days or hours at least. Reality is in the devices. Your staffing has to be super specialized. Your control is always behind. And your governance voices, because they are always a step behind, are always trying to get in your business. And they slow down progress because they feel like they need to hold back all the bad people and what they do. So they get in the way. Takes a lot of tooling too. Okay, let's talk about the cloud. Look at that cloud. It looks so peaceful. You never know the frantic terror that can be found inside. All right, well, the picture looks simpler, right? The benefit of public cloud, wait, how many people have worked with a public cloud provider? AWS, GCP? Okay, 70%. How many of you have done so via Terraform or CloudFormation? Half of those, okay. And the rest of you are just clicking to to provision the instances and stuff? Okay. Actually, no, I forgot my question. This is my question time. Any thoughts or questions about data centers? How that culture works, how the priorities work for a security team? Crickets? Has anybody worked in a data center first company? Several. Okay. For the rest of you, I cannot even imagine, only knowing GCP or AWS. Okay, cool. All right. So, as all of you know, the benefit of the cloud is that there's everything. Everything you could possibly want is there at your fingertips, right? The home brand is usually better. If you need a message queue, you don't have to go out to the message queue vendors, right? And find the one, decide whether the one from IBM or the one from Oracle or some hot new startup has the better message queue. No, you just spin up SQS and you're done. And like, it's gonna last you a long time. That's gonna provide more throughput than you will probably ever need. The home brand is usually better. And so everything, because most people use mostly the home brand, everything looks the same. Your environment and somebody else's environment and somebody else's environment, they might have different configuration strategies, but the tools to get console access to an EC2 or like change access controls are always the same. If you follow the instructions on the box, cloud-based IT also yields a different organization and culture. Now, you still need app teams to interface with the customers, to know what they're looking for, to talk to them, kind of thing, like account reps for your internal business functions. But you don't need infrastructure anymore, because all you need is developers, because all of your infrastructure is fundamentally code. You're defining what needs to exist. And these teams have a lot to do with each other. They're often, spiritually connected. Okay. So one of the nice things about this is that governance can be nearly invisible. If you set governance programmatically through like access control policies through Identity Manager, or maybe some Macy instances that crawl for credit card numbers on the regular, you can do it automatically. You don't need to get in the way, right? You can build governance invisibly. Now, this is not entirely true. Like, you still need to stop your customer service people from selling, stuff to terrorists. Like, that's still a compliance obligation that AWS cannot fix for you. But IT's job gets, IT governance can get a lot easier. Here's the big threat: the console. For those raised in the ClickOps tradition, like traditional IT data center, like you go to the whatever you need and you click and you say, I want this and I want it to look like this, and you follow the instructions and it spins up, you are probably imagining some hacker logging into the web UI and clicking around and like doing nefarious things with his mouse or her mouse. You should not do that. Think of the console as just APIs. And this means that the web UI just calls them, right, on your behalf because you can't remember them. And it has like helpful notes in the interface about how you configure this stuff. Whoops, excuse me. Anyone with console access has immense and nearly instant power unless you've specifically prevented that. If they can get in, they can stand up new instances, create new rules, suck out data. Even if you don't know where your crown jewels are, they can stand up some Macy instances, find out, and you get the bill, right? Just because you don't know what you're doing, they can do this so fast. Recon is also easy because everything looks the same. Everybody's AWS environment looks the same. They don't have to spend time trying to figure out, well, what vulnerabilities can I use against this version of Ariba? Like it's easy. Either they can get it or they can't. They don't. So they don't have to spend time figuring stuff out. Finally, you do not have an admin with good judgment anymore getting in the way. If Jeb from accounting suddenly requests like a MongoDB instance, previously your server admin's like, I don't know about that. This seems fishy. No, the console's just going to say, okie dokie, and give it to him, right? You do not have good judgment slowing things down. Attackers do not have to live off the land. In a data center, we have what's called advanced persistent threat. They get into somewhere and then they look around and they recon and then they maybe get into the next system and the next system and the next system. That is unnecessary in the cloud. They're in, they get everything. Also, not a security thing, but cloud's more expensive. If you're going to pay per compute, you pay like 10 times as much for EC2 or Fargate than if you were leasing server racks off from like Hitachi or HP or something. This is why they're making boatloads of cash, because they have figured out a system that works once for everybody, and they're selling it for a mint. The value from a cloud comes from the organizational simplicity. You do not have to staff up all these people. You do not have to hire COBOL programmers. You do not have to hire CCNAs. The same guy or gal who creates your databases can create your message queues, can stand up like a CDN in a couple hours, right? AWS, Azure, GCP, they make it very consistent, relatively, at least compared to the data center. And you never have to go shopping. You never have to say, oh, I guess I need something to host JVMs now. Okay, let's find the JVM hosting platforms. No, it's there. It's like JVM host, and then it says Beanstalk. And you click on it, and you pop it up, and you point it at your JVM. So easy. I will also say the governance tools are so good compared to data center governance tools, like the built-in access management platform that Amazon created, the identity manager. They should have come up with a more creative name, but is amazing. That is every network security person's vision of utopia. If they could do that, that would be so wonderful to them. And if you're spending, well, so, and we talked about data governance as well. All right, here are the 3 things. You can go home now. In a data center, things are slow. So if an attacker wants some sort of unauthorized VM, they have to submit a ticket, and wait a week. And that's why they usually don't. In the cloud, everything's fast. So they can drop new malicious instances in services you never use, in availability zones you've never used before, faster than the logs can inform you that it's happening. So you do not want to get into a whack-a-mole situation on your cloud provider. The approach is different. Instead of trying to know about all the things and patch all the things, you lock down all the things. Identity becomes really important. In the cloud, it means a lot more than just people. Accounts, in these platforms, you can just spin up more and more accounts. You can layer them with lower and lower and lower access levels so that if anyone does escape, like the app container, and gets access to the cloud account running it, they can do almost nothing except what the app container could do. You can write rules, extremely tight rules, how instances or classes of instances can talk to each other, when they can talk to each other, and have universal rules that apply to everything, and cascading rules that apply down. It is, managing identity is where a lot of the value is. Then, let's see. Finally, you probably shouldn't even log into any of these non-user accounts, right? There's no need to. You can, like the AWS console gives you pose as, and if you have the permission to pose as a certain account, a certain service account, you can perform actions as that account without ever knowing the password. Don't ever log into these guys. There's no point, no value. Heck, probably write a script that sends your security team an email if anybody does log into them, because that's the bad juju is probably going down. Next, config. You should only use Git, you should only use ClickOps, like the interface, in a sandbox environment. The way to do this on the box is define everything you need, how it should work together in Git, and only let some Terraform or CloudFormation rules define it into the instance, right? This is the safest way. And restrict access to within an inch of its life. Because if anyone does get unauthorized access, they will not be able to do very much, right? They won't have access to other availability zones. They'll just be able to vary data from this guy to over to that guy, right? Much safer. Git becomes your IT source of truth. So you always have full visibility into exactly what should be. And then finally, detection. Because everything's so fast, you need to know when something, even the slightest bit goofy, is going on. Even if it's just like your internal team being loose, you want to know about that stuff and help find a way for them to do it better. And The config is going to help a lot here because the more you lock down what's allowed, the tighter you can define your detection rules, and the easier detection gets. This is ostensibly how the cloud providers use their own platforms. Identity Manager, CloudFormation are the most mature and powerful AWS offerings, in my opinion, and they're virtually free. CloudWatch can be a pretty penny, but if you did your config right, you shouldn't have a lot of volume, so you shouldn't be paying a lot. All right. So, in the cloud, change is fast, so fast. If you're doing it right, your reality should be Git. You are speaking, you're like wizards, speaking your data center into existence. Your staffing is going to be mostly devs, plus some people to talk to the customer. Your control is up front, it's through config and identity management rules, identity governance, and it's much easier to get in front of things because if you lock that down, your devs get an immediate feedback that, like, this ain't gonna work because your rules don't let them do it the wrong way. All right. Now, the tricky bit. You will all notice that Amazon and GCP and Azure do not make you do it the right way. The web version allows you to do ClickOps, right? You can elect to deploy data center designed networks and virtual machines and all the traditional data center type stuff, VLANs, and then have app teams log into servers with admin accounts. In short, to lift and shift the data center infrastructure into the cloud. That does not mean it's a good idea. When you lift and shift, you get all the major disadvantages of both, and neither of the advantages. You're still using data center culture and processes with ClickOps and tickets and manual provision, and everything's super slow, and your customers are like, IT is terrible. Control is expensive. You gotta provision all these extra security tooling to watch all the things, to make sure bad things don't happen. And you still have to manage a lot of vulnerabilities with operating systems and stuff. And you have not hindered an attacker in the slightest. Because you probably haven't set all these identity management rules, and you haven't locked down access to the APIs or to the console. Everybody's just in there clicking away, doing their tickets, right? If any of them get compromised, you're hosed. Your whole environment is hosed, right? And fast. And your incident response team is still thinking, they're still patting themselves on the back for detecting an incident in 4 hours. Like, that's good for data center. They got to be able to do it in 40, 50 seconds in a data or in a cloud. You're still paying 10 times as much for cycles and for hardware, for resources. Any of your people can make big errors as they're clicking around, but it's cheaper. Like, of people, process, and technology, technology is like the easiest to change. Getting a team to change their process is like 10 times as hard. And culture, changing culture, is monumentally difficult. So, like, changing an IT shop to from data center culture to cloud culture is going to be tough. You might not be able to do it. You might have to just hire all new people and hope. All right. So, the cloud is not magic. You've probably met CIOs who think the cloud is magic. Everything is magically better in the cloud. It's fast, it's cheaper. It is fast, it's not cheaper. You have to really do a good job of identity, config governance, and detection. And above all, your culture is important. How your teams work together. You're hiring a dev staff. You're not hiring CCNAs anymore. In the data center, things are not bad. It's not bad in the data center. You do have a lot more operations to take care of for security. Phones to look at, you got networks to segment, you got lots of work. But their culture works for them too. And there are some businesses that should not move to the cloud. Terrible idea. Manufacturing environments, that's a bad idea, right? They got all these little scanners and laser etchers or something all hooked up. Moving it to the cloud like a network blip is going to make things go down. All right. So, cloud is not fairy dust that you sprinkle on things to make them fly, right? Remember this when your CIO next asks you, why can't we move to the cloud? Or why shouldn't we move to the cloud? So data centers are not security dumpster fires. Each of these has unique threats and advantages that warrant a different culture. Okay. What you got? Crickets. If you guys want more resources, while we do questions, go ahead.
So, my company and a lot of companies, I'm sure, kind of have a hybrid approach. And so, I'm kind of wondering how you see both the need for a data center culture and a cloud culture and how that works.
Yeah. I think the question is, who's calling the shots on each side of the hybrid? Right? If you have, like, senior architects that grew up, they cut their teeth on mainframes and Windows 2003, unless they're absolutely brilliant and they've seen the light, they should not be calling shots on the cloud because their default approach, their knee-jerk, is to set up a VPC, VLAN things, and set up a bunch of EC2s. I have seen it so many times. And I think only you, and you probably shouldn't answer the question, but know how your CIO, your culture is working for managing these two sides. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And when you're talking about hybrid cloud, you said it depends on what kind of, because I'm working for a big insurance company. It's what data that you're using, you can't ship directly from public to private. Okay. But he said that he mentioned VPC. So you can't change overnight. There are a lot of networking involved, a lot of users already, depends if you hosted a website. So if you want to change it to private, it's make a lot of, it impact a lot of users as well. So unless if your application is okay, fine, that the latency of the user even that's fine, my website not available for another 10 days, that's fine. In those cases, you can choose this option. But most of the cases, in the big tech companies are going to do the public data.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. Maybe I've not seen it, right? But you're saying, okay, in the cloud, we really don't need a CCNA, for example, right? And all we need is devs. I don't know. I've seen a lot of devs try their hand at networking. trying to sort all that out, I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't know, maybe the dev needs to know networking anyway. I don't know, is that something that happens in companies where we really just throw out everyone that specializes in network and all
Right.
that?
It's a chicken and the egg problem, right? Because if you have an environment in your cloud that has a lot of networking subtleties, you probably did lift and shift. And
I suppose you mean you're just buying all of the services natively in it? Yes, probably.
yeah, so instead of, like, the alternative might be, like, say you have an application server with, like, I don't know, an application with, I don't know, 8 JVMs and some Oracle databases, and, you know, it's segmented, and there's some IPMI interfaces in the back end, and some SCCM, and some Ansible, or something like that, right? And you have VLANs segmenting them all, right? So the Ansible can talk to the JVM hosts, and the SCCM can talk to the Oracle things, or whatever. Or you can say JVM goes on Beanstalk. This JVM, or this class of JVMs, are allowed to talk to this database. And this database, there's no server. It's just like a managed database instance. And you define, like through tags or something, database instance can talk to these Beanstalk instances. And you have eliminated your need for SCCM because you've got no servers. You've got no operating system to mess around with anymore. And so your VLANs become substantially simpler and are replaced with basically API access rules. Did you buy that?
It's something I have to look into. I've not. I've done some of the DevOps thing, but a lot of it's on-prem.
Yeah.
Right. So you just kind of do both. But yeah, I have to look more into kind of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. The third guy here, so these are more resources. Probably the best security guidance for data centers is the CIS critical security controls. They used to be called the top 20, and then they cut 2 of them, so now they're 18, and 18 doesn't roll off the tongue anymore. They're really good. If you want to secure a data center, they are prioritized, people understand them, engineers understand them. Muckety-muck MBAs understand them. They're great. How many people have read one of the well-architected frameworks from AWS, Azure? 2, 3 gold stars. I really like them. Like they get into the why more than your typical IT like explainer, right? Like this is why you want to build it this way, not just I want to build this in the way I'm already imagining, and they explain how to do it. This last guy, he's kind of salty. What's his name? Corey Quinn. Yeah. He goes on rants fairly often about Amazon and about Azure and all their foibles. And he runs like a cost optimization, I don't know, outfit of some sort. And he has a phrase that says, you cannot make meaningful cost improvements to cloud spend without architectural changes. You can't do it. Cost is intrinsic to architecture. And you're going to spend more on tech. Like put your CIO hats back on. In the cloud, you're going to spend more on tech, but you're just going to spend way less on people, right? Because things aren't as different.
And risk.
And resiliency.
So there's not just the people side, it's also
there are other. Yes. What else?
can ask a question.
Yep.
How many? So we're talking about like CIOs and some of the decision making. How many of you have CIOs at your company, or somebody that's responsible for these types of decisions at a C-suite? So whether it's CIO, I'm sure that's a CTO, but like, who has CIOs themselves at their companies? Just third. Okay. Who knows? Like, who are the people that make these decisions on architecture and on ultimate sign off on the things at your companies? So you, okay, so 2, 3, okay. Who else knows who that person is in their company? Okay, only a couple, okay. So really, so there's still about probably 3 or 4 that aren't really sure who it is or how that is, okay. That's not that abnormal. I mean, sometimes you just don't need to know. It's you just, but yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, there's always a hierarchy chart.
Whether it's implied or not. Yep.
Yeah.
When you are part of a cloud engineering, where you used to see a lot of architecture designs and where you have a conversation, you're done for 4 months and you had one glitch and you need to go back to the architect. Hey, this is not the exact design that we want to do. Then they need to re-architect the design. So that's it. Get to know.
Well, did I get any flack? Any major disagreement?
I have a major agreement. 2 things you said. One is this notion of limiting access to those that have a need to know. And the other is the identity management side of that. So those are 2 big, high on the list takeaways from what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll hear a lot of Gartner types say the key to cloud security is identity. And this, I think, is where they're coming from, is like defining it better than a data center ever possibly could.
Yeah, I just appreciate, I worked in manufacturing before IT, so I always like when people from IT have kind of the wherewithal to realize that you really should not be connecting a lot of this stuff. Like, we had a lot of issues with fine automation, where JC lost packets between, and you just don't need to introduce the idea of APTs in your system along with just core configure networks or even networking gear that's 30 years old, because in that thing you're pinching pennies for no reason. So you don't do anything with electronics until it fails. So
Yeah.
it's good to hear.
And sometimes like those manufacturing environments are a real bear because you've got $500,000 pieces of equipment that you bought 30 years ago, and they were running OS 2. And you're not going to buy another one just because it's still on OS 2. Like, no, you're not.
It still does the job.
It still does whatever it does. And the best thing you can do is just stick a VPN tunnel in front of it so it can only talk to the one app that it needs to, and you call it done. I supported a manufacturing environment early in my career, and we knew, like, the metrics at that place were amazing. We knew how much it cost per hour of unplanned outage. So when manufacturing went down, it cost $40,000 an hour. So that really helped people make good decisions about what was worth it.
DevOps comes out of the manufacturing principles. So,
Yeah. Toyota, Deming.
Henry Ford, Toyota, then, yeah.
So more resources. I have many talks. A lot of them are at this like incentives and strategic level. I'm not your best technical explainer, but we like explaining why and examining why. Yeah. If you have feedback on this one, please let me know. Continuous improvement and all that. I would love to hear it.
All right. Dylan, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Hey, look, DevOps Days KC. Hey, definitely get your tickets. And then that's really it.